the centre of the circle to the heel stone, this is a line to the summer solstice sunrise. So in some respects, this is like the Stonehenge of Wales. Now, you go in through the entrance and you come to a 5-sided chamber, and it has one upright stone in the centre of it with markings on it, and people didn't know what this was for years. But actually, there is another. This is the stone circle in the centre with the markings on it. And this is the entrance in the southwest. Now you think, why on earth is there one in the southwest? Well, actually, what the purpose of this is to work out the distance between the Sun and Venus, because if you go there when the sun is set and Venus is still in the night sky, Venus shines through that entrance onto this stone, and it has the markings on it. It has these markings on it. Can you see them? That's all. And by using the when the sun sets and how high Venus rises, the light of Venus rises up that middle stone, you can actually calculate the distance between the Venus and the Sun. And why do we know this? Well, the number for Venus is 5, and it's a 5-chambered. 5 sides of the chamber, and also in the entrance was a bull, and the bull, of course, is the associated with Venus, because Venus rules the sign of Taurus. And I've been to Brindisi a few times. I've been a couple of times with Neil, and also I went there for the eclipse in August 1999, and I thought I was only going to be the only person there. But when we arrived, it was a bit like a sort of gathering of the tribe. It was wonderful. It was actually probably what it was like years and years ago, in Neolithic times. Because people were looking at their eclipse glasses, they had bowls of water, they had telescopes. It was wonderful, and it was really spooky, because it was 95%. Although it was a full eclipse, you had to be down in Cornwall, but it was still 95, and the sun it went really dark, and all the animals stopped talking. It was really spooky, but it was great. Now, this is my favourite one. You've already seen some pictures of this from previous speakers. This is Castle Rig up in Keswick in Cumbria. So who's been to Castle Rig? Yes, I thought you might have. It's actually a wonderful place. It stands at the top of Chestnut Hill, just outside Keswick. Keswick is known as the capital of the Lake District, and the circle is just outside Keswick. It's at the top of a hill called Chestnut Hill, and when you're there, it feels like you're actually on top of the world. It's marvellous, because all around you, you've got all the fells of the Lake District around you, and it's absolutely incredible. It's a very sort of mystical place. I've been there over 100 times, and when my time comes, I'm going to have my ashes spread here.
And the ashes around for us.
I've actually taken place in a few rituals up here. We did one. We spread one of our friends' ashes. We spread that there. We've also done hand fastings, witch weddings there. This is the northern entrance, and this is the southern one. So you've got these two main entrances that are flanked by these large stones. There's actually 38 stones in the circle itself, of which 35 are still standing. This is the interesting thing. Is in the east of the circle is a thing it's called the Cove. Now this is unique. There's no other stone circle in the United Kingdom that has a feature like this, and people often wonder what it was. To me, it's like a sort of holy of holies. The fact that it faced east with the rising sun, I find very significant. And it's a great place. This is some of my coven years ago, all standing there. We were there for a hand fasting, and I got them all to stand in the cove and take their photo. And it creates a lovely sacred space. And the nice thing is there, when we were doing this, although there was loads of other people there, lots of other tourists, they all kept a respectful distance, and they probably wondered what the hell was going on. But, all these people dressed up in robes and wearing garlands of flowers and that. And of course we had the broomstick for the bride and groom to jump over and all that. But they kept a and the fact that we got a round of applause when we finished, which was quite nice. You showed this, didn't you, Peter, yesterday? How a lot of the stones at Castlereagh mimic the fells that they stand in front of. And thank God for digital photography, because it took me about 20 attempts to get this picture. Because although it's dead easy to see with the eyes, when you're doing it with a camera, somehow you can't see the alignment. So but I got there in the end. And actually, I'm going to tell a story about the very first Mysterious Earth conference. The first Mysterious Earth conference, which took place up in Windermere in April of 2009, Neil booked me as the last speaker on both days. And on the first day, I was talking about Castlereagh. So I did an hour's talk. It was meant to be an hour, but because it was overrunning, I sort of rushed through it, and it took about half an hour. And afterwards, we were then taking what I thought was going to be Neil and the minibus they had at the time, take a party of about 12 people up to Castlereagh and I showed people around it. But actually, Neil had hired a 52-seater coach. And also, he was staying behind at the conference because to deal with the speakers and things. So it was me and the coach driver were left to go take 50 odd people up to Castlereagh. And horror upon horrors, when we got to the road that leads up to Castlereagh, there's a big sign that says unsuitable for coaches. And I thought, oh no, what are we going to do now? So I had a word with the coach driver, and then the coach driver said, well, I'll chance it. I don't mind. Okay, all right. On your head be it. So we went up there. When we got to the top, how he turned the coach round, I do not know, because the roads around there are really tiny and all that, but somehow he did it. So I showed people around, I showed them the alignment, I showed them the outlier and the alignments and talked about it for about 20 minutes. Then we all had an ice cream, and we got back on the coach. And coming down the hill, we were met with a tractor kept pulling a muck spreader. Oh no, this is turning into my worst nightmare. But what happened was the tractor driver actually put the tractor right against the fence, almost in a ditch, right against the fence, and I got everybody in the coach to breathe in. And we just squeezed past with about 2 inches of spare. So, fortunately, we got back okay. And fortunately, the next day I was talking about Long Meg and the circle, and on that occasion we went off to Long Meg, which was great. I'll come on to that in a minute. And but no incident with the coaches on that day. Now this outlier is quite interesting. It actually has plough marks across it. Can you see them at all? And the outlier is next to this stone wall, this next to this road. Now, obviously, this Castlereagh was built about 5,000 years ago, and the road wasn't there then. So the position of the outlier is a bit suspect, especially as it's got plough marks on it, so at some time it was buried. But what was interesting about the outlier was, this is the view of Castlereagh from the outlier. It's about 200 feet away. Now, this is a great hero of mine, Professor Alexander, also known as Sandy Tom. Have you ever heard of him? No? He worked at Oxford University. He actually helped with the design of the bouncing bomb. I can never remember the person.
Barnes Wallace, aren't
Barnes Wallace, thank you. I should put his name off. I can never remember. But he actually worked with Barnes Wallace to develop the bouncing bomb, and he was a great professor, archaeologist. And when he retired in the 1950s, he decided to go and map and do surveys of all the stone circles in Britain. And it's thanks to him. He went to over 300 different sites and surveyed them all with his thlodomite. I can never say that word either. But he did very accurate, and he was the person who came up with the thing called the megalithic yard, which is the standard size of it's about 32 inches, something like that, and he found this was built into all the stone circles in Britain, and it's thanks to him. I mean, he published his book, Megalithic Sites in Stone Circles, in the 60s, but academia totally ridiculed him. How could there be a thing called megalithic yard? These people who built these circles could have that sophistication. But actually, as time's gone on, he's been proved to be absolutely right. Now, Tom was very interested in the outlier at Castlereagh, which I just showed you, because he thought there must be some sort of alignment, much like there's one at Stonehenge. This is Castlereagh from above. Now, it's actually, Tom came up with ways of classifying the stone circles, and he called this one a flattened type A circle. And these stones in the west form exactly a semicircle, exactly a perfect semicircle, but the ones in the east have all been moved, so they're flattened. And I want you to point you to this one here. Can you see there's a post hole there? You can sit on it. You can't sit on the ground. You can't see it at all. But so he had a look at the outline. Tried to look for some alignment between the outline and the centre of the circle, and he found there wasn't one. But that got him interested to look at, are there any other alignments? And yes, there are. In fact, it's quite amazing, because at Castlereagh, you've got the sunrise, you've got the extreme positions of the rising and setting of the sun and the moon, just like the standing stones at Castlereagh, at Stonehenge. And also, there's one stone missing, the one there, and that's that post hole. That's the stone hole, the hole that I pointed out. You can see from there. But also, you also got you're all familiar with the Celtic calendar, the pagan calendar, the Wheel of the Year. Getting some nods. There's 8 festivals. They've all been Christianized now, but like you got Yule is Christmas, and we've got Beltane, which is May Day, and Samhain, which is Halloween, which is coming up next week. And Castlereagh, by flattening the circle and with those stones, you've got the sunrises on all the 8 festivals of the Celtic year. This is Longmeg and her daughters in Cumbria. Who's been there? Some of it, yes. It's a lot more accessible now. They've actually built a car park there now. It's known. The signposts to it say the Druid Circle, which is utter rubbish, because the Druids didn't arrive until about 2,000 years ago, and this is 5,000 years old. Longmeg is this outlier here. And her daughters, there's 66 stones that stand in a circle. This one's called a flattened type B by Tom. And the interesting thing is, I think it was Peter, wasn't it? Yesterday was talking about rocks having faces in them. Do you remember that? Well, Longmeg actually does look like a witch with eyes and a nose and a witch's hat. She's actually 12 foot tall. She's red sandstone. The rest of the stones are granite. And the story goes that Longmeg is a witch, and the daughters are the 66 witches in her coven. Now, if any of you have ever been in a coven, if you have got 66 people in the coven, it's bad enough having 13. Trying to organise witches is like herding cats. right? So this would be totally impossible to do, to have 66 people in the coffin. But this was sort of during the puritanical ages. A lot of ancient sites in Britain were given evil sort of non-Christian names. Like you get the Devil's Arrows in Yorkshire, and you got the Devil's Chair at Avery, and this is another one. And the story goes that if you try to move any of the stones at Long Meg, then you get a big thunderstorm comes, and there was someone who they thought there was buried treasure there. They tried to move some of the stones, and there was a big thunderstorm, and all the workers ran off scared. But it's a wonderful site. It doesn't get many visitors. I've been there probably about 20 times, and there's usually only a few people there. I don't know if there's more now that there's the car park, but because you used to have to actually drive it. There's actually a road that runs right through the centre of it. And if you do decide to drive up there, don't go in. There's a farm at the end of the road called Long Meg Farm, and the farmer there comes out. If you try and park in there or try to turn your coach round in there with your minibus, he comes up with a shotgun and threatens you. So you don't want to do that. So do park at the car park and walk up to it. This is me standing next to Long Meg to give you an idea of the height of it. On Long Meg, there are spirals and concentric circle carvings on it. Now, you saw those yesterday. Peter showed you at Newgrange, where they talked about when you're drumming and the incense and the smokes for these spirals. Now, you don't find spirals actually on the stone circles in the United Kingdom, but there are some on Long Meg. There's also another little site just down the road called Little Meg, on which again there are spirals and concentric circles. And the next site I'm going to show you is Glastonbury, which is another stone circle. And these are the only three circles in England, and they're all within like couple of miles of each other, and the only ones with spirals or circles on them. But it's very, very common in Ireland. And when I went to Ireland, I went to Newgrange the first time, which was about 20 years ago, and I pointed out, we had this lovely Irish lady who was the guide, and I said, "Oh, we've got some spirals and circles like that in Cumbria." I said, "Oh," and I won't do the Irish accent, but said, "Oh, so you were copying the Irish back then, were you?" You know. What? Glastonbury is actually quite an interesting one. There's 28 stones in the circle, and it doesn't stand on a very dramatic thing. In fact, it stands on a private farm, and the farmer doesn't like you go in there, but it's quite deserted. So if you don't mind risking the cows that are in the field and going over there, it's all right. But what's interesting about Glastonbury, actually, although it's got that stone circle there, it was originally there was a huge mound made by stones from the local river. And what they found when it was excavated in 1912, and unlike the excavations that you see now that are all meticulous, they totally destroyed the place. So they removed all the pebbles that formed it, and in the centre they found an urn with some human remains, and also some glass beads that had come from Egypt, which was quite amazing. They're now in the Carlisle Museum. But it's not. It's difficult to find because you can't see it from the road. You need my guidebook to get it. This is Neil's favourite circle, isn't it, Neil? Yeah. This is Swinside, which is Cumbria. It's north of Ulverston, and this one. Who's been to Swinside then?
Yes.
Oh, excellent, because it's quite a difficult one to find. There's only a couple of spaces to park a car on the road, and then you have to walk along a farm track, which is very uneven. I wouldn't recommend taking your domestic car along there. If you've got a Land Rover, you'll be all right. but it's quite a walk. I remember when I went there. I hadn't been there before, but the person who was taking me home, and I said, "Oh, where is it then?" They said, "Well, you see that farmhouse about 2 miles away? It's there." I thought, "Oh, blimey!" So on we walked, and but it's lovely, Swinside. It's really like sort of it's the same age as Castlereagh and Long Meg, and because it's Neolithic. And there's some big stones, and again, there's an alignment that Neil found. One of the stones actually aligns like at Castlereagh. It aligns with one of the fells. I give Neil credit in my book for that. Now, this is one of my favourite ones. And it's actually a reconstruction. This one, until the 1930s, it was all buried in the farmer at the time had buried it all in the ground. But they did a reconstruction of it. They put rods down through the earth to find out where the stones were, and then they in fact, it was a scout leader and his Boy Scouts who did it, and they erected all the stones again. And by using the side of the lichen that had grown on the trees, they managed to resite them in where they should be. Now, if you're interested, this is the unashamed plug, right? Because what happened was, years and years ago, it must be about 20 years ago, my wife at the time, she decided to stop working for the civil service and become a full-time astrologer and tarot reader. So she worked on the telephone lines, where you ring up these ones, and, they keep you talking for an hour, and you pay about £60. So she had to do 3-4 hour shifts. So I was relegated to the office, and after 2 weeks of playing patience on the computer or solitaire, I thought maybe I could actually put this time to better use. So I started writing a book about stone circles of Cumbria. And I worked on this for about 2 years. This was back in the days of floppy disks and all that. And I ended up with thousands and thousands of pages. And I thought, this is going to cost me a fortune to publish. And I'm not, who's going to buy it for like 30, 40 pounds? I was like, no, it's not. So I just shelved the whole thing. And then years and years later, a friend of mine who is an editor of a magazine, I got out the floppy disks and showed him this, and he said, what you ought to do is break it down into smaller books, make them guidebooks to go and visit the place. I thought, that's a good idea. So the first one I did was Castlereagh, and this was in like 2009, and at the very first Mysterious Earth conference, that was where I sold this book for the first time. So that was where I made my debut as an author. And so this one is for Castlereagh. The idea is with my books is with my guidebooks is that you get the book, it shows you where to go, it tells you about the history of the place, it tells you who built it, it tells you whether you can picnic there, whether it's private, whether there's an admission fee and that sort of thing. Also, I tell you about the Beaker people who built it, and there's also a guide to the 8 festivals of the year and all that. The idea is that you take the book with you, and you can learn more about the place when you visit there. And apart from Castlereagh, I've also done called Spirals on Circles about Long Meg, Little Meg, and Glastonbury. And I've also done another one, Hidden Treasures. This was mapping up all the other sites that are harder to get to, which includes Birkrigg Common and Swinside, and Greycroft and many of the other ones. There's about 12 in the book. Is there anybody here from Liverpool? Hello. Have you visited the Cornerstones?
Not yet.
No. So, as I say, I gave this talk in Liverpool a couple of years ago, so I showed people in Liverpool that they got their own stone circle. So, apart from and Cumbria and Callanish and Wiltshire and everywhere. There's lots of stone circles all over Britain. So wherever you're from, there's stone circles in Yorkshire. I've been to all these with Neil. And there's ones in Derbyshire as well. I've been to all these. Neil does trips to all these ones. And 5 years ago we went to Cornwall. We went in August and it rained every single day. When I got there, I phoned my friend and she said, please tell me you not only got your denim jacket. I said, I've only got my denim jacket. So I spent every evening in the hotel with my denim jacket and the hairdryer drying out my jacket. But we in fact, the one day it didn't rain was Wednesday. It was when we went to Man Atoll. Have you ever been there? Any of you in Cornwall? Yes? It's not a stone circle, but it's another ancient site. But again, Cornwall's absolutely, there's tons of them on Bodmin Moor. This is the Ring of Brogda, which is actually one of the largest stone circles in England. Or in England, it's on Orkney. But it's absolutely huge. I went there with Neil about 7-8 years ago, and absolutely amazing circle. And these are the recumbent stone circles of Aberdeenshire. Aberdeen, I went there about 15 years ago. There's actually 66 of these. They're called recumbent because of the stone in the middle that lies recumbent between two. It looks a bit like Batman's cowl, actually, doesn't it? There's 66 of them, and I was up there a week, and we went to about 10. Some of them are in churchyards, and others are in fields in the middle of nowhere. And one of them, which I actually never found, but anyone used to watch the Fast Show here? Do you remember the husband and wife that used to do the painting? And he'd go, and I think I'm going to have to use some black. And it's all black. It's black. Are we sleeping on mother's grave tonight and all this stuff? Well, when I was trying to find one of these recumbent stone circles, I drove in the absolutely middle of nowhere, and there was a woman painting. Well, I don't know what she was painting because there was nothing to see. But behind her was her husband in full Highland dress playing the bagpipes. I wish I'd in those days. Obviously, I had a camera, but I couldn't believe it. It looked like something out of the Fast Show. It really did. I wish I'd taken a photo of them, but I've never found the recumbent stone circles. They're only found in the UK in Aberdeenshire, but there's quite a lot of them in Ireland. This is Stanton Drew. Who's been there? Yeah, quite a lot of you. Yes, this is down in Somerset. It's near Bath, and it's the second largest stone circle in England after Avebury. And it's actually a series of three. That there are three stone circles. There's two small circles and this large one in the middle, and they're aligned again like Stonehenge and Brinkley. They're aligned to the summer solstice sunrise. There's also a lovely pub called the Druid's Arms, and in there is a thing called the Cove. There's one at Avebury as well, and it consists of two male stones and a female stone forming like a three-sided thing, and it's in the beer garden of the Druid's Arms. And of course, again, it's nothing to do with the Druids. This is Avebury. Who's been to Avebury? Yes, fantastic. This is the largest stone circle in the UK. It's actually so big that it actually has got a village and a pub in the middle of it. And it's quite, again, a lot of it has been removed. But there's also other sites close by called the Sanctuary. And there's an avenue of stones that goes from the Sanctuary to it. And again, like the avenue at Stonehenge, when people would process from the Sanctuary along the West Kennet Avenue, they would only suddenly see the stones at the very last minute. It's actually designed so you only see the stones at the last minute, and it would have been really, really impressive. And again, it's absolutely amazing place. And unashamed plug for Neil's tours. I've been on probably about 12 of them with him, and he goes to all these places, and we've had some fantastic times. We went to Ireland this year. Last year we went to Carnac in France, which is absolutely amazing as well. And what I would encourage you to do, in fact, I don't really need to. This is the way I always end my talks about stone circles, but really, from the number of you that have been putting your hands up, you haven't really needed to be told to go and visit these stone circles, do you? But if you haven't been, then I would encourage you to do so, because when you go there, you're walking in the footsteps of your ancestors. So thank you very much, and that's all, folks.
Thank you, that was lovely. That was really interesting. Thank you. I've just been told again to remind you, if you want to book your sandwiches for lunch, can you go and do it at 11:30, just at the service area there. And thanks again, Kevin. And has anybody got any questions for Kevin before? You got a question?
It's regarding the granite and sandstone, the daughters, I don't know what it's called. Mostly, most paranormal activity happens with granite. It's an amplification of psychic phenomena. So it's interesting to put sandstone and granite there. That's actually a physical mechanism. Now, regarding the spirals, that's usually a representation of portals, because stone circles are in southern Africa, not South Africa, are torsional field machines, that you're probably aware on that side. So yeah. The Celtic side, maybe the fairies, etc., like how they spell it over there, probably it's more active on that side. And going back to the fact that your wife is an astrologer, I'm sure you're aware that your first society on Earth civilization was Sumeria.
Yes.
And Marduk was told by his son Enki, when they're dividing the horoscope, about his loss, about his lineage not happening on there. So the fact that the ancients that we call gods, back then they did the alignments, carries on to this day is quite interesting. So those three different things.
Yes, but I did go into it because of the time. Obviously, this was a whirlwind tour of the stone circles of the UK. But I've done dowsing at Long Meg, and if you walk from the entrance stones towards Long Meg, they cross 3 times, and where they cross energy points, and you can, if you turn, you can follow them, and they actually. So there's circles that actually circles around the outside of Long Meg, and this sort of begs the question: what was there first? Was the stone circle put there because of the energy lines, or